Today, Haulin S-10 is back in the shop so we can plumb the fuel lines, run the wiring harnesses, and then hold your ears, because we're finally putting the spark to our 600 plus horsepower blown 355 V8. That's all today here on Trucks.
Hey, welcome to the shop. Well, here at Trucks, Ryan and I are fast approaching a goal that we set for this V8 S-10, a truck you guys might remember as Project S-10K. Well, we wanted to transform this relatively quick little street truck into a serious street and strip truck that, quite frankly, is going to see a lot more track time than anything else.
Now, S-10K was an experiment to see if we could create a V8 S-10 within a $10,000 budget. And with the success of that project, well, it was time to take things to the next level. So we stripped out the 350, pulled the bed off the frame, and installed S&W Race Car's back half frame section, complete with a 4-link, a narrowed 9-inch loaded up with strange nodular center section, 456 cogs, and Curry heavy-duty 31 spline axles. Aerospace Engineering capped off the chassis with a lightweight 4-wheel disc brake package.
Now, with our chassis rolling on lightweight Mickey Thompson ET drag wheels, wrapped by 26 by 7.5-inch tires up front, and their ultra sticky 31 by 16.5 DOT tires out back, we turned to a company called ATK Engines for some forward motivation. They started out with a 4-bolt main block loaded with a forged Lunati crank, rods, and pistons, giving us 355 inches of displacement and a very nice place for the YN671 blower to reside. Power estimates are around the 600 horsepower mark, and with that much on tap, we had to have a transmission that would take the abuse.
So Mark Bowler of Bowler Performance Transmissions hooked us up with one of his prepped Turbo 400 3-speed automatics that's rated safely up to 650 foot-pounds of torque. Now, to connect all that motivation to the rear axle, we called up Denny's Drive Shafts, and they sent us a 2-piece shaft based on our measurements that is balanced up to 7,000 RPM and capable of handling massive amounts of torque.
Now, with the chassis pretty much rock solid, Ryan's been hard at work inside the cab here installing the Kirky racing seats and the S&W roll cage that's going to be connected to the frame at 8 different points for really good security in here. Our Hurst quarter shifter is installed, flaming over steering column, Grant wheel, odometer gauges, and this painless performance switch panel for engine communication.
Now, along with our Prothane engine mounts, we're going to shave down this Competition Engineering front plate to stabilize the block while we're at the track. Kevin also made a snug little home for our Flexolite radiator here in our core support. Now, this engine's going to need a lot of gas, but how much? Well, under boost, we're going to need 40 to 50% more fuel than a naturally aspirated engine. So if you're building a blown engine, make sure your fuel system's up to the task. And there's formulas available on Holley's website you can use to determine your engine's fuel requirements, so you can pick the right pump, line, and carb combination. Running one of these boosted engines lean will get you in trouble in a hurry, maybe even melt a piston.
But we're not going to let that happen using this 150-gallon-per-hour inline electric pump we got from Holley that's capable of sustaining 900 horsepower. And we're going to use half-inch braided stainless line and AN fittings that we got from Earl's to make a really clean-looking system, but also a very safe fuel system.
A nice, clean installation is for more than just good looks. Organized routing of electrical wires and fluid lines makes for easy troubleshooting and repairs at the track, as well as a safe project. So we're using T-clamps to mount and isolate the fuel line. These clamps come molded in several different colors, almost every size imaginable, and they eliminate the possibility of damage caused by excessive vibration.
Up front, Ryan's using more Earl's AN-8 fittings with their half-inch braided stainless steel line, plumbed into Holley's adjustable fuel pressure regulator. We've mounted ours on the firewall for easy access and tuning at the track. From here, you can see how we tubbed the bed. We just trimmed and moved the inner wheelhouses inboard and then inserted the 8-inch piece of flat stock that S&W provides with a kit, welded it in place. It's very simple but very effective. Our fuel cell comes from Summit Racing, and we'll plumb it to the pump with the same AN fittings and half-inch line, but since our pump does not require a return line, we'll just plug this extra port off.
When we come back, we'll do away with that heavy old stock wiring
That was
harness
a perfectly good running truck.
and replace it with a new lighter system.
And it weighs in at...
Stick around.
Hey, welcome back. With the fuel system plumbed on Haulin S-10, we can get started wiring up the electric fuel pump and all the other circuits and accessories on the truck, since we literally stripped out the entire original harness. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, that was a perfectly good running truck. Everything worked, the lights, the stereo, the air conditioning, ABS, EFI and engine circuits. Why did they rip out the entire original harness? Well, we're going to show you why.
Okay, let's come clean right here and right now. This is a race truck that we're going to be able to drive on the street every once in a while without getting a ticket, and that only depends on how deep we push our right foot into the loud pedal. And weight can mean the difference between winning a race and not. As a matter of fact, the general consensus is that for every 100 pounds of weight that you shed off of your vehicle, you shave 1/10 of a second off your quarter-mile ETs. That matters. So we're going to do a little experiment here using our intercom scales.
Well, it looks like our original engine and chassis harnesses weighs in at about 44 pounds. So we're going to replace all this mess with a new painless performance race harness.
Now this system comes with a new switch panel, a 12-circuit fuse block, all the gauge feeds, and everything that you need for a complete wiring replacement system. And it weighs in at 14 pounds. That is a 30-pound weight reduction in just the wiring alone, let alone ABS, the steel hood, the inner fenders, the upholstery, carpet. We've literally bought ourselves about a half a second off our ETs without even touching the engine.
Now, rewiring a vehicle is a project most people absolutely dread. It ranks right up there with working on an automatic transmission or going to the dentist. But take a look at this animation. Maybe you'll realize a job like this is something you can tackle, especially on a simplified system like this one. Think of the battery as a storage tank for electricity. From the battery positive post, power flows through the heavy cable to our main battery disconnect switch. The more current that passes through the wire, the larger gauge wire you will need. With it in the on position, we now have power available at the starter and fuse block. Fuses enable the power to continue to the switch panel, where it awaits the command to move on. At the push of a button, electricity then activates the consumer of the power, whether it's a light bulb, starter motor, or fuel pump. The circuit is then completed with a connection to the battery's ground, typically through the vehicle's frame. Then, when the engine fires and the alternator starts spinning, it will in effect refill and maintain the power level in the battery. Now for our electrical storage tank, we're going to use an Optima, and to get this truck wired up, we're going to start at the battery. Ours is going here behind the right rear wheel well to help with weight distribution and weight transfer. Plus this aluminum battery box, well, it's NHRA approved.
We're using heavy 4-gauge wire for battery power and ground that comes with the Taylor relocation kit. Since the battery cable runs the length of the vehicle, you'll need a large enough wire to allow good current flow.
Now, since our power supply and our fuel supply both go to the same side of the engine and both down the passenger side frame rail, we're going to route our battery cable through the frame for a little extra security. Right, go ahead.
All right. Using a length of tie wire, you can run it through the frame rail and pull your cables or harnesses through while someone else feeds it on the other end. Then it gets run through the bottom of the floor up to the battery cutoff switch in the cab.
After the break, we'll finish wiring up our truck and get the dash mounted.
Sweet.
And later, it's fire in the hole!
Hey, thanks for watching Trucks. If you're just joining us, we've already got our fuel lines run and our fuel pump in our truck, and we're about to dig into the wiring system of Haulin S-10. We're using this basic 12-circuit system we got from Painless, and it covers the essentials, but this is really no different than any other wiring system.
With our battery cable tucked neatly into the frame rail and run up here into the cab, We'll mount our main cutoff switch right here, where not only the driver and the passenger can reach it, but somebody from the outside of the truck can as well.
Now, some things are just easier to work on when you pull them out of the truck. The original location for the fuse panel for our S-10 was right here on the side of the dash. Now, we want better access than that. And the good news is that we can put that fuse panel pretty much anywhere we want. So we're going to use a central location right here where the ashtray used to go and mount our new paintless fuse block right up in here. All we got to do is fabricate some brackets. We're good to go.
Using some scrap pieces of 16-gauge stainless steel, Kevin made some simple mounting brackets for the fuse panel. Using a central and accessible location like the center of the dash keeps you from having to stand on your head to change fuses or to test circuits. And it's still out of sight if you're concerned about a clean appearance.
After finding a good location for the engine harness on the driver's side firewall, Ryan routes the harness through from the engine side so it can be connected with the main harness. Using a grommet helps keep the weather and fumes out, as well as making sure the wiring isn't chafed or damaged during installation. There you go.
Thanks. Now, since we know our MSD box is going to mount right here on the firewall, well, we know our ignition on and our tack signal wires, they'll terminate right here. And the rest of these handful of wires, well, they'll go to the starter and starter solenoid, and a couple of them to gauge sending units.
The engine connections are labeled on the wires and are trimmed to fit, terminated, and installed. But the heart of the engine wiring is the ignition system we got from MSD. It's their 6 BTM box that comes with a boost retard selector. Now, we've got a nice patch of unused real estate on the firewall where the heater box used to be that'll make the perfect mounting point for the box. The rear section of the chassis harness has a fuel pump switch and sending unit and all the brake light information as well. So we're going to run it along the roll cage and then down under the truck alongside of the rail. So since it's going outside the vehicle, we're going to protect it with this woven plastic sheathing.
The chassis harness has the lighting and fuel circuits and gets run inside the cab and then under the bed along the left side frame rail. That way the wiring harness is on one side and the fuel is on the other.
The switch panel feeds get cut to length and terminated into the supplied bulkhead connectors. This way, disassembly is as easy as disconnecting one plug if the dash needs to come back out. Sweet. Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, we are so close to having Haulin S-10 become the running, driving street sweeper that we know it can be, thanks to the Painless Performance 12-circuit race harness and this culvert-sized half-inch fuel line and fittings that we've got feeding this monster. Right now, we're triple checking things like fluid levels, electrical connections, and fitment, making sure that everything is up to snuff before we start this thing up.
Now, starting the engine up today is not the same as an initial break-in run on a fresh rebuild. ATK ran the engine in when they put it together at their facility and gave it a thorough flogging. So we don't have to worry about things like initial timing, valve adjustments, or running in the rings in the cam. And we know it'll hold together at wide open throttle. Now, our plan all along with this truck was to make good power without being stuck with race gas. So what's in the tank now is straight from the pump, 93 octane.
Now, we've already blown out our new fuel line with compressed air, but it's a good idea to purge the line with fuel and the fuel pump just in case there's any debris or shavings still kicking around. Okay, hit it. Good, nice and clean.
Now, for our cooling system, we're going to run straight water and a cooling system additive. It'll lubricate the water pump seals and reduce the surface tension of the water, creating a more efficient cooling system. Now, at the track, if we were to bust a hose with an antifreeze water mixture, well, it makes a slick mess, and that's the last thing you want to run through at the 1,000-foot mark. Now, for our supercharger drive belt, since it's a toothed belt, you don't want it too tight. You want about 1 inch of play, 1/2 inch on either side of the belt. And make sure to check it periodically. Go ahead and hit it. Well, this thing is sounding really nasty, but before we take it out of the track, we're going to give it a good, solid and thorough tech check. Make sure everything's good to go. Then we'll see if we can't do something about the appearance.
Because we want to eliminate any evidence that this was ever Project S-10K. Give it a paint job deserving of its new name, Haulin S-10. If you've got polished aluminum anywhere in your vehicle, you're probably like me and have a love-hate relationship with it. You love how it looks all shined up, but you hate the amount of work and hand rubbing it takes to keep it that way. Well, that's where Flitz comes in with their mini ball and their new super mini ball. The individual fingers are designed to get down into the cracks and crevices and literally take all the handwork and the hard work out of keeping your aluminum shiny. Now, the combination of the Flitz ball and polish works great on chrome too, and you can get your hands on a Flitz super mini ball for less than 30 bucks.
Now here's a handy tip for you. Earlier today, you saw us route our battery cable through the frame rail. Well, there might be some exposed, sharp edges that can rub the insulation of the cable, causing a short circuit and putting an early end to our day. So we made up this box to simulate a section of frame rail so we can show you what we've done. With a couple of holes drilled in the frame rail, you can use an expanding foam sealer that you can get at any hardware store or home center. It expands to several times its size and takes a few hours to set up, so try not to move the wires around for a while. Now you may want to put some plastic or paper down to protect the floor, because this stuff can get messy. But after it dries, your wiring is not going anywhere. Thanks for watching Trucks. We'll see you guys next week.